Dear students, today we will learn some more important examples of decomposition reaction. So the first example is electrolysis of water. So the activity goes like this. Here a plastic mug is taken as shown in this figure. Two holes are drilled at the base and a rubber stopper are fitted in each of the holes. Carbon electrodes are inserted in these rubber stoppers as shown in the figure. Then these electrodes are connected to a 6-volt battery. Electrodes are immersed in water and few drops of dilute sulfuric acid is added into the water. Now two water-filled test tubes are taken, which are very carefully inverted over the electrodes. As you can see over here, two test tubes are taken which were filled with water and they are now inverted over the electrodes very carefully. Now switch on the circuit. Next step is you have to switch on the circuit. Now you have to leave this whole apparatus undisturbed for some time. Some bubbles are observed at both the electrodes. As you can see, some bubbles are observed at both the electrodes, and these bubbles start removing, or you can say displacing, water in the test tubes. So is the volume of gas collected same in both of the test tubes? Once the test tubes are filled with these gases, what you have to do, you will remove these test tubes very carefully and you will bring a burning candle near the mouth of both the test tubes, and this is done to test which gas is being evolved. So now let us go to the observations. First of all, gas bubbles appear in both the test tubes as we have discussed right now. Then there is a difference in the water level rise in both the test tubes. As you can see in the figure, here the level of water is different, and in this test tube the level of water is different. You can refer to this figure at page number 9, and the figure is figure number 1.6 of NCERT. When burning candle is brought near both the test tubes, near one test tube burning candle continues to burn, while in the other test tube the candle is put off by the gas. So can you tell me which gas is present in each test tube and which gas supports burning? Yes, you are very correct. The gas which supports burning is oxygen. So now let us come to the learning outcomes. Hydrogen is the first product which puts off the candle flame. This we have studied also when we were seeing the tests which has to be performed for analyzing that hydrogen is evolved. In that also a burning candle was brought near the test tube from which the gas was evolved, and that burning candle got put off with a pop sound. So here also the same thing is happening. When the burning candle is brought near the mouth of the test tube from which gas is evolving, the candle flame is put off, and the second test tube contains oxygen. It is evolving oxygen which allows the candle to burn, and the whole of this process is summed up in this particular reaction where water is decomposed into hydrogen and oxygen, and this happens in the presence of electricity. This whole activity of electrolysis of water is very important topic, students, and this year also it was asked in board examination. This diagram was asked, and it was asked about the gases which are evolved in both of the test tubes and the test related to each of the gases being evolved. And this whole is an example of electrolytic decomposition, because the decomposition is carried out in the presence of electricity. Next is an example of photodecomposition, that is action of sunlight on silver bromide and silver chloride. So let us go with the activity. Here a watch glass is taken in which silver chloride is taken, and the color of the silver chloride is white. So you have to observe the color both before and after some time. Now this watch glass is placed under the sunlight for some time. So the observation is there is a color change which is noticed. There is a color change of silver chloride after some time. So the learning outcome is that in this reaction the silver chloride, which was white in color, decomposes under the action of the sunlight, and this is the reason this reaction is known as photochemical decomposition reaction, and it is endothermic reaction because energy is getting absorbed during the course of the reaction. Silver is the product formed and it is gray in color. So what color change is observed? From white to gray. Silver chloride was white in color, and after some time under the action of the sunlight it changes into silver, which is gray in color, and chlorine is liberated in the form of the gas. It is the second product. So silver chloride, one reactant, under the action of sunlight decomposes to form two products. So this is an example of photodecomposition. The same way goes with silver bromide. Silver bromide, under the action of sunlight, it also gets changed into silver and bromine. These two reactions of silver chloride and silver bromide, the photodecomposition of both of them are used in black and white photography. So we have seen, dear students, that decomposition reaction needs certain form of energy to proceed forward, and this energy can be either in the form of heat, light or electricity. Thus we have studied three types of decomposition reaction. First was thermal decomposition, second was electrolytic decomposition, and third was photo decomposition. And since energy is absorbed in these reactions, they are also known as endothermic reaction. So now a quick recap of whatever we have studied today. So decomposition reaction, one example was decomposition of ferrous sulfate, in which ferric oxide was formed and sulfur dioxide and sulfur trioxide were formed. There was characteristic odor which was observed during the course of the reaction, and the green color of the ferrous sulfate got converted into the red brown color, that is rust. Next was the decomposition of calcium carbonate, where calcium carbonate decomposed to form quicklime and carbon dioxide. This quicklime is used in many of the cement industries, cement manufacture companies. These all were the example of thermal decomposition as heat was used. So what is happening in decomposition reaction? Single reactant breaks down into two or more simple products. Another example was of lead nitrate, where it was decomposed under the action of the heat into lead oxide, nitrogen dioxide and oxygen, and brown fumes were observed, if you remember. Next was the electrolytic decomposition, that is electrolysis of water. Dilute H2SO4 was added because it was helpful in conducting electricity. So the observation during this electrolysis of water were that bubbles were found in both the electrodes. Volume of water displaced in both the test tubes were different. Hydrogen gas and oxygen gas were evolved. Another example of photo decomposition were the decomposition of silver chloride and silver bromide. The white color got converted into grey color silver under the action of the sunlight, and these two were used in black and white photography. So decomposition reaction requires energy. This energy can be in the form of either heat, either light, or in the form of electricity. As energy is absorbed during the course of reaction, these reactions are also termed to be the endothermic reactions. Now third type of reaction is displacement reaction. Students, in chapter 3, metals and non-metals, we will study about reactivity series in detail, which is shown here in this figure. So the elements which are at the top of the reactivity series are most reactive elements, while those which are at the bottom of the reactivity series are least reactive ones. So what is happening in displacement reaction? In displacement reaction, an element which is more reactive removes or displaces a less reactive element from a compound. So let us understand it with the help of an example. That is reaction of iron nails with copper sulfate solution. Here 3 iron nails are taken. Please listen to this. This particular activity is very important and it also comes in your examination. So 3 iron nails are taken, 2 test tubes are taken, and they are labeled as test tube A and test tube B. In each of the test tube, 10 ml copper sulfate solution is added. The copper sulfate solution is blue in color. Now keep the test tube B as it is. We will leave it as it is. We are not going to disturb it. We are not going to put anything else. It will only contain copper sulfate solution. Now place 2 iron nails in test tube A for 20 minutes. And keep third iron nail as it is aside for comparison. After 20 minutes, take out iron nails from copper sulfate solution. And now you have to compare the blue color copper sulfate solution of test tube A, that is the original one, and of test tube B. And you also have to compare the color of iron nails dipped in copper sulfate solution and the one which was left as it is. So now let us see what observations are seen. The iron nail which is taken from the test tube A turns brownish in color. So you can see this is the original iron nail and this is the iron nail which is taken out from the copper sulfate solution. So the change in color is clearly observed over here, and the color of the copper sulfate solution fades from being blue color initially. So there were 2 test tubes. In one, that is test tube B, there was copper sulfate solution before the experiment taken as it is, and in test tube A there was the copper sulfate solution and 2 iron nails were dipped in this particular solution. So you can clearly see the difference in the color of copper sulfate solution both the test tubes. It is the original blue color, and while here it is slightly faded color. So what learning outcome we get? Here the element iron reacts with the compound copper sulfate. You can see here in this particular reaction, the iron of the iron nail reacts with the copper sulfate solution and forms ferrous sulfate and solid copper. So what is happening here? Displacement is happening over here, where iron, which is more reactive than copper, you can see here in the reactivity series, iron is placed above the copper. So iron is more reactive than copper. So because this is strong, it is more reactive, it displaces copper from the copper sulfate solution and forms ferrous sulfate, and copper is formed. So this is an example of displacement reaction. So we will stop here, students. All these reactions, whether it was of decomposition reactions or displacement reaction, they all are very important from the board point of view. You must understand these activities very well. You can take help of NCERT also. You can see the diagrams over there also. They are very clearly depicted over there. You can take help from NCERT, and please go through these particular activities, their observation. Many questions are asked in board from these. So we will stop here today. Thank you very much.